Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain and my favorite season of Power Rangers is Lost Galaxy. For me, it doesn't just represent a highlight of my childhood or a quality season of a franchise I have unmatched love for, it's much more personally affecting than that. So it only seems right that after picking apart the missteps in Samurai, that I discuss what made this journey across the cosmos just so captivating. It bears noting that not only will there be spoilers here, but that pretty much every important plot point will be spoiled here. So, if you want to start or finish Lost Galaxy before then, you know what to do. With that said, let's not waste any more time and jump right in. Power Rangers Lost Galaxy marked the beginning of the post-Zordon era, after Zordon selflessly sacrificed himself to stop Astronema's invasion of Earth, as well as destroy all of the evil in the galaxy that we knew about at the time. A perfect ending to a great season that was almost the last for Power Rangers. But, because In Space did so well, the franchise kept going strong and Lost Galaxy began. And, as most of you know, Lost Galaxy represents the first major shift in the casting and characterization culture for Ranger seasons. During all 6 Ranger seasons prior to this one, the Rangers were in high school. Even during early In Space episodes, that was still a defining feature before slowly phasing it out to focus more on the final frontier. It also represents the first real disconnect from the past, seeing as how no Rangers in this season, until Crone joins later, are from any previous ones. This was the correct move because it was high time for Power Rangers to diversify their storytelling and experiment with different directions and themes. And, to separate themselves from the previous space-themed adventure, they made our heroes for the season young professionals traversing space, thus allowing the entire team to be characterized by traits outside of being students. The first trait being the fact that most of the team works on TerraVenture in addition to living there. Now, let's discuss why Quasar Quest is the perfect season opener. Firstly, we already know that Leo is eventually going to be the Red Ranger from the opening credits. It's not a mystery. So, the challenge was then to present him in such a way where we understand why he'd be. They convey so much about Leo in just one carefully cultivated first fight. We know he's just an ordinary guy that gets thrusted into a spectacular situation, not even having been chosen for the TerraVenture colony. But, despite that, he still helps out a helpless elderly woman who was chosen, not by overpowering, but by outsmarting the would-be thieves. This is characterization done right, and because he's sneaky, he manages to hop aboard TerraVenture anyways, which honestly needs better security measures. And through a cacophony of stumbles and mishaps, including running into the universe's most perfect woman, and Kai's there too, he finds himself on a Starship Troopers-inspired GSA training mission on the moon. It's there where we learn that Mike, an important part of the TerraVenture crew, and Leo are actually brothers. And then, the 4 meet Maya, agree to try and help her, except for Kai, and then we're on to part 2. The idea of introducing Rangers in a more scattered way, even though they all end up in the same place when Furio attacks, is a smart move, because there's no Zordon here to assemble them all at once. And it gives us time to understand the characters better before they even morph. It's something seasons like SPD and even Dino Charge also did right later on, but I think Lost Galaxy does it best. So, in part 2, Kai and us the audience meet Damon for the first time, and the pair pilot the quote-unquote museum that is the Astro Megaship. It is kind of weird that anyone thinks the ship is just for show, especially since we know that Countdown to Destruction wasn't too far removed from these events, but thankfully that's only ever a very minor one-off line. So, eventually, all of our heroes, except Leo for now, find themselves with Quasar Sabers in hand, looking to stop the Stingwingers and Furio. Unfortunately, Furio gets really mad and decides to turn Miranoi into stone. Let's just say the mechanics of that power are inconsistent at best and move on. But with the planet breaking and the Rangers needing to escape, Mike finds himself unable to pull himself up from a fissure. So, he hands the Quasar Saber to Leo, while he falls to his alleged death. The 2-part opener ends with Alpha excited about the return of the Power Rangers, but nobody else is. The rush pace of leaving Miranoi and the cold tone in the closing minutes was perfect, because everyone knows that while they might have colorful new outfits, their new job would not be as shiny and whimsical as their Charlie Brown themed attire. Maya just had to leave the only home she's ever known behind, while Leo had to leave his older brother behind. Not only that, but he knows that he wasn't chosen, just like with TerraVenture, which on top of avenging Mike, becomes his motivation for pushing himself towards Ranger respectability. These opening 2 episodes were perfect, because everyone was able to be characterized in a unique, subtle, and interesting way. We know exactly what Leo is all about before he even makes it out to space, and his wide-eyed wonderment about the great beyond is basically all of us as kids, or even still today. We learn how strict and demanding Kai can be, but also that sometimes even he needs to look beyond what seems reasonable to solve problems. We learn how diligent and intelligent Kendrix is, while also seeing her as a compassionate, excitable person who is just as psyched about space as anyone. We learn how invaluable Damon will end up being as a mechanic, the type of grease-in-your-fingers profession that is easy to overlook, but is necessary here for the more technical challenges. And we learn about Maya, and how her ties to Miranoi and the more naturalistic side of space will also be invaluable, as well as what now motivates her as the Yellow Ranger. But, maybe more importantly, this team has now bonded through their first test as Rangers, an exceptionally difficult test that they didn't really pass. They may have incredible new powers, but Miranoi is in ruins and Mike is gone. That's our introduction. Before the main bads of the season even appear, and before any Zords can be discovered, the Rangers fail. It hurts, it's hard, it's perfect. This is our first sacrifice of the season, and it'll push our new team to be that much better, especially Leo, because they have to be, or the bugs will win. I won't summarize every episode in this way, that would honestly take hours, but it's important to know how and why Lost Galaxy started like it did to understand the themes of sacrifice, overcoming loss, and overcoming yourself. These themes affect different characters in different ways, but some degree of sacrifice represents all of Terra Venture's inhabitants, because remember, they are all voluntarily giving up their lives on Earth to find this new world, a journey never before attempted. So, the adventure is about much more than just the Rangers stopping the forces of evil. It's about making that colony-wide sacrifice worth it. Now that we've set the table by analyzing Quasar Quest, let's talk about the characters themselves and how each of them are allowed to embody those aforementioned themes, and we'll start with Damon Henderson. Damon is an easy enough character to understand. He likes his job, likes being a ranger, and does what he can to help when he can. He best embodies the theme of overcoming yourself, not because he has any hang-ups with who he is and what he does, but because other higher end people do, i.e. the people most likely to look down upon the kind of profession Damon prides himself on. Especially since, technically speaking, he shouldn't be here either, but Kai dragged him along for the ride in Quasar Quest Part 2. Enter High Council Rainier, someone who is initially dismissive of Damon, but ends up respecting him after his mechanical prowess aids in saving her life. The interesting thing about Damon is that he flirts with the idea of being more, but actually isn't all that interested. His arc, even though it's not as important relative to the other characters, is all about others, and to a lesser degree himself, recognizing that he's fine with where he is as a character, even if some people wish he could be more. Kai Chen is a disciplined, sharp, strict, no-nonsense, rules and regulations are made for a reason, by the books type of guy. Characters like him often get a bad rap for being killjoys, but given how many things can and do go wrong on Terra Venture, a one-of-a-kind space colony, you need people like him maintaining order. That's made very clear early on, while Kai is trying to train Leo, to poor results, and Leo not listening to Kai causes avoidable issues. Quasar Quest Part 2 gave him his first chance to go above and beyond to save others, but even then, he was still inspired from the orders Commander Stanton gave prior to the Moon mission. So, Blue to the Test was where he really got to overcome himself. In that episode, Commander Stanton is being controlled by a monster, but nobody knows that early on. Kai is forced to disobey his commander for the first time, which leads to him saving the colony. And while it may seem like the obvious course of action, we all know the historical atrocities people have justified when just following orders is the excuse. When you're in the situation he was in, it really makes you think, rethink, doubt yourself, doubt others, reevaluate what seems clear, and then reevaluate your reevaluations. Basically, a ton of stress. In many ways, Kai is far less characterized by his first impression compared to any of the other Rangers. He is more often than the others presented with complex or moral dilemmas, and sometimes both, which is the smartest possible way to develop a character built around following the letter of the law. But through it all, he proves time and time again to go above and beyond the call of duty, figure out solutions that run deeper than his character at first glance, and act selflessly, which is probably why he was able to pull that sword from the stone to begin with. Maya is interesting to talk about because her character embodies all three themes to varying degrees, while also embodying much of the lore and mysticism that comes with the season. Just in terms of the scale of it all, Maya has the most to overcome, even though her demeanor usually doesn't show it. Adding onto her home having been attacked and being chosen to save the galaxy, she now has to live among strangers in a space station filled with technology she's never seen. It helps that she looks like a human, so blending in is a little easier, but she still at times struggles with the customs of a species foreign to her. But despite all of that, she earns her stripes as the spiritual guide the Rangers need to better grasp the depths of space as an entire entity, which is far more than futuristic tech. That helps foster the idea that Maya's involvement could be a metaphor for the combination of both the natural and the technological elements present in this season. Something that's paralleled by the Galactabeasts being both living creatures and at times machines, making the Transdaggers kind of like the first morphers for Zords. That's why it makes sense that Maya can hear and communicate with the Galactabeasts early on, even though the mechanics of hearing creatures through space is a little wonkier. It's funny because even though she is Miranoian, there is this essence of humanity to her that really brings the season together, to say nothing of her toughness. The way Maya embodies sacrifice isn't the same as with the next trio of characters we'll discuss. It's more about pushing through the sacrifices made for her and involving her. Her planet is turned to stone in episode 2, but she still finds the strength to soldier on. She is forced to work with and then defeat a monster that she ends up befriending, but she still soldiers on. She loses her best friend in the season's third great sacrifice, but she still soldiers on. Maya had to overcome what must have felt like the entire universe conspiring against you, but she never once broke. So, we've talked about everything Damon, Kai, and Maya overcame to grow as people and succeed as heroes, but now, with Kendrix, Leo, and Mike, we find ourselves firmly into the realm of sacrifice, and with the last two, overcoming loss. I've probably done enough gushing about Kendrix Morgan in my last Ranger Top 10 video, so I'll try to keep it together this time, keyword being try. If Maya is what holds the season together through everything she is and represents, then Kendrix is the glue that holds the team together. She makes meaningful connections with everyone on the team, and even attempts to understand Magna Defender before he changes for the better. She even had the presence of mind to remember and bake a cake for Damon's birthday, who she's the least close with relative to the others. And having that ability to make important connections with your team, especially becoming Maya's best friend in the aftermath of her horrifying ordeal, you just can't put a price on that. She's not exactly what comes to mind when you think of a fighter, but just like Leo, she makes sure to train for the fights ahead, knowing that any given day could present a new monster and her strength could end up being the difference. But more than anything, she's exceptionally good at her job, which also benefits her hero work. After all, she's the one leading the charge to uncover the lost Galactabeasts. After the incredible To the 10th Power episode that saw Space and Galaxy Rangers team up, Psycho Pink returns looking to get her hands on the Savage Sword, a weapon that could ruin many people's afternoons. Cassie and Kendrix fight her, but Cassie's morpher gets stabbed by the sword, causing a destructive chain reaction. Kendrix knew that there was only one way to save the day, and she willingly did it. What's really perfect about this moment is not just the selfless sacrifice, but what it means that someone like Kendrix is the ultimate hero. But I'll discuss that overarching idea a little more later. There were two major sacrifices before Kendrix, but this one created this incredible tone shift in the very next episode, conveying a group of Rangers who were sick and tired of all the loss and needed to just get things done. And they did all of that with minimal dialogue. Quasar Quest pushed the team forward, but Power of Pink nearly pushed the team to a breaking point before Corone arrives. Kendrix's sacrifice leads to Corone gaining the Pink Ranger powers. The idea of overcoming yourself that defines Damon and Kai also makes Corone's return a strong fit into the season's narrative, because as we all know, overcoming herself literally means letting go of the princess of evil she once was. And, as Lost Galaxy tends to do, they made a brilliant focus episode out of that idea immediately after Corone inherited the Pink Quasar Saber, because before she could be a hero, she first needed to confront and defeat her villainous past one last time. Corone is one of the greatest characters in all of Power Rangers, mainly because of the journey she goes on and how she's able to make that switch from arguably the best villain in the franchise to one of the greatest Pink Rangers. Journey being the operative word here, because that's what Lost Galaxy really is, a literal and metaphorical journey for all the main characters. And, speaking of a journey, enter Mike Corbett and Magna Defender. Since their arcs are so intertwined, I'll be talking about them at the same time. So Mike's sacrifice in Quasar Quest didn't actually kill him. Instead, Magna Defender saved him, overtook his body, and escaped his 3,000-year containment, vowing revenge on Scorpius, who, by the way, killed a child. His child. It doesn't get any easier after Quasar Quest. Magna Defender is the very epitome of a badass, from his own theme music to his entire aesthetic to the amazing voice performance by Kerrigan Mahan to his convertible gun sword. There's also an interesting dynamic going on within him that I think was intentional. Because Mike, who is a pure of heart guy, is part of him at this point, many of his actions seem to be a combination of Mike and Magna Defender, with a larger lean towards the Defender's side, which also adds context as to why saving Leo was his first on-screen action, and why Leo could feel Mike's presence emanating from Magna Defender before that reveal. This duality helped keep Magna Defender from being completely consumed by vengeance, which almost caused the destruction of Terra Venture. And in the end, just like Mike, he sacrifices himself for others, and in doing so, brings Mike back to the land of the living and honors the memory of his fallen son Zika. Then, Mike inherits the powers and for a time, becomes the raddest looking ranger ever. There's a reason Mike was chosen to first wield the red Quasar Saber, and everything comes full circle when Mike needs to sacrifice himself again, almost killing himself again, to save the colony, just as with Magna Defender's final moments. Just like another late hero, he too held the door, or portal in this case. Going along with our theme, that's twice now that the Defender powers have been given up for the greater good, and this works as a clever indirect parallel to Quasar Quest. Mike is alive this time, but once again, it's up to Leo and the others to finish what Mike started and save the colony once it escapes the Lost Galaxy, which leads nicely into the younger Corbett brother. Leo Corbett is one of history's greatest rangers, and part of that is because he for sure did not start that way. Becoming the Red Ranger wasn't all that different from sneaking onto Terra Venture. In both cases, he wasn't anyone's first choice, but his relatable passion to see what's out there led him to his destiny as the leader of the new Rangers. But the important thing is, he knows he wasn't chosen. He's reminded of what holding that saber cost him every single day until Mike's revival. That's what's driving him to push further, to work harder. But thankfully, none of that turned him into some kind of stoic edgelord, just as Maya's trials didn't convert her away from her nurturing personality. He was still able to be one of the most entertaining Rangers to ever do it. He's a lighthearted, fun-loving, charismatic, and clever guy, but when it's time to get serious, he can flip that switch in a hurry and get the job done. And because he only lasts a day as Kai's underling and never takes on another Terra Venture job, he doesn't have much else to focus on other than being the best ranger he can be. That's his path towards overcoming the loss of his brother, and because of that, his priorities go through some reshuffling. He focuses less on his initial plan to see what's out there and more on connecting to his team and preparing for the next fight. And then, when it matters most, in comes his moment. Kendrick sacrificed everything to save Cassie, the colony, and countless lives. Mike nearly died again to make sure the colony could escape the Lost Galaxy, and now, at the journey's end, both Leo's literal and metaphorical journey ends with his own sacrifice. Trakina goes absolutely mad with power, killing off all her Stingwingers and even striking down the always faithful Villamax. Leo knows he needs to end it here, so after the Rangers do a lot of initial damage, he takes a page from his older brother's playbook by blasting Trakina at close range, a move that could have killed him, to save the day once and for all. And then, his arc closes on the perfect shot of the battle-scarred helmet. Leo's journey began with Mike's sacrifice, and now, after all the training, after all the monsters, after helping prevent the colony's destruction time and time again, and after watching both Kendrick's and his brother lead by example, Leo's journey ends with him fully prepared to give it all up, even though he pulls through. The Galaxy Rangers go through a lot during this season, but notice how all of them find a way to persevere. In spite of their relatively normal occupations or lack thereof, they find a way to be heroes. It's a powerful statement because it represents the next step of the idea Zordon originally had when he assembled 5 teenagers with attitudes. He knew what this season knows, that the desire to be a true hero is the most important part of heroism. We see so many Rangers that shouldn't be there, so many Rangers who don't quite fit the mold, so many Rangers that shouldn't be effective. You're too fun-loving, you're too young, you're too weak. Heck, Zordon himself could have hired bigger, stronger adults to wield the powers if he wanted, but they are given a chance or chosen anyways because of that desire to do more, to give more, to be more. Damon could have hid behind the "I'm just a mechanic" label. He doesn't. Kai could have packed it in when he saw his friends disappear or when he was removed from his post. He didn't. Maya could have given up hope when she saw her friends and family turn to stone. She didn't. Similar to Damon, Kendricks could have hid behind the "I'm just a scientist" label to keep herself out of harm's way. She never even considers it. Mike and Magna Defender didn't have to risk everything to save everyone but them. They did. Multiple times. And Leo Corbett, he shouldn't even be here, but here he is. He wasn't even chosen to be a Ranger, but here he is. Every single Ranger this season did more, gave more, and became more, but none more so than Big Red himself. And Leo needed all the more he could get, because his arc is one that is paralleled by Trakeena's. Both end up losing a member of their family, and both are motivated to push themselves further as newly minted leaders because of it, making Trakeena's final moments during Journey's End the perfect way to end this particular season. And the reason Trakeena loses is par for the course as well, because sacrifice takes two forms in this season: risking yourself for others, or risking others for yourself. Trakeena, of course, chooses the latter. She orders all of her Stingwingers to commit suicide to destroy the Centaurus and Stratoforce Megazords, and she kills off Villamax, an excellent villain and her most loyal follower. The Honorable Villamax trained her to become stronger, to fend for herself, all while Deviat, another great villain, is setting up Scorpius to be killed, making that training all the more necessary. Then, Villamax assumes second in command on her ship because nobody in their right mind would trust Deviat. Villamax's demise wouldn't have mattered as much if he wasn't the caring, devoted alien that he is, one that created Trakeena's arc, and one that refused to take up arms against her despite her mad state. His death at her hands is the singular moment that represents Trakeena's complete and total fall. She has detached herself from everything and everyone in a quest for power and victory, so much so that she even gives up her beauty, which used to be important to her, for even more power. Conversely, it's because Leo and his team have several strong bonds pushing them forward that they eventually wear her down, which then leads to Leo's moment. Leo and Trakeena possess similar character arcs, but one side survives because of how Leo overcame his loss compared to Trakeena, although technically Trakeena comes back in Lightspeed, but for another time. Even though Countdown to Destruction is still probably the thing you think about when it comes to best Ranger finales, Journey's End should be mentioned right alongside of it, because for the reasons I explained, few, if any, other season finales have as much narrative weight as this one. The visuals, the escalation, and the confrontation itself are all awesome, but the specific ways that the Rangers and Trakeena developed along their journeys makes their final fight mean so much more. Speaking on more technical details, the Lost Galaxy team had a unique rapport about them. Solid acting, solid writing, and good direction all melded seamlessly together to create a team that feels like a real family through the best of times, the worst of times, and everything in between. There wasn't as much of an emphasis on human side characters this season, especially with Skull left on Earth, but the focus placed on the multitude of villains creates its own story in the background. Although you can take or leave Captain Mutiny, he doesn't really add too much to the story. But with at least 7 antagonists making noteworthy contributions to the story, and the Psychos on top of that, you've got perhaps the most impressive and most dangerous villain lineup of any season. Even Scorpius, who can barely move, adds weight to Trakeena's arc, because in spite of being a villain, he still genuinely cares for his daughter, just like Ecliptor before him and Rancic after him. Additionally, I do think the chosen set designs here are as good as it gets for a Ranger season. The combination of advanced workstations, futuristic and efficient rooms, as well as multiple domes for specific environments really sells the space colony aesthetic. The colony does look somewhat more cramped from the outside than from the inside, but that's fairly minor and not really distracting. However, not even Lost Galaxy is flawless all the way through, even on the broader scope. This is kind of a general superhero issue, but the idea of bringing people back from the dead does slightly cheapen the sacrifice. But the reason I don't have any real issue with that is because while we the audience might have expected them to return, there was no reason for the characters to expect that, so it doesn't lessen the plot points and development that comes from it. In addition, one thing Lost Galaxy didn't do as well compared to its predecessor was make the idea of traveling through space meaningful story-wise. You'll notice that powerful upgrades like the Trans Daggers and the Lights of Orion are all acquired right on Terraventure. Even Magna Defender makes his first appearance on the colony because that's where the lights are. We never even learn the name of his home planet, let alone visit it, and wouldn't seeing an entire race of people who look just like him just scream epic? The counterpoint is the reintroduction of the planet Onyx, which was a nice way to connect both space seasons again since it serves as Crone's intro. As a planet, Onyx is known for housing some bad hombres, so it also makes sense that Trakeena would train to become stronger there. Although it is ironic that she finds and recruits the two least evil antagonists of the season in a planet known for evil. It's kind of weird even calling Kegler an antagonist, he's quite pleasant actually. But even when Terraventure entered the actual Lost Galaxy, our heroes only ever had to deal with Captain Mutiny's slave planet, which also isn't named. And even with Kendrix's sacrifice on Rashon, the only planets that end up mattering are Onyx and Miranoi once Earth is in the rear view. The Power of Pink is an exceptional episode, but the fact that the climax occurred on Rashon doesn't really add anything. It could have taken place on the colony, and it wouldn't have really changed all that much. Conversely, In Space was able to utilize several more planets and locales to construct their story. They even had 2 episodes where the Rangers found themselves protecting a never-before-seen alien life form. Planets such as KO-35, Hekuron, Centaur B, Onyx, Yotoba, Cadix, just to name a few, all have roles to play and add to the idea that a lot of this isn't occurring on Earth. But maybe that goes back to what I was saying about Leo, how he started off wanting to see what's out there, but once he got his first look, it became about being a better ranger and not so much about the great beyond. But even still, I do think there was way more they could have done with the idea of space, especially the idea of a lost galaxy, since the title of the season is Lost Galaxy, yet the actual Lost Galaxy is only a minor part of Lost Galaxy. Aside from a handful of details and the occasional throwaway episode that every season of Rangers has at least a couple of but are much rarer here, Lost Galaxy proves to be a brilliantly conceived season, and most of that brilliance has to do with how the characters are constructed. The general plot episodes do a great job at allowing us to better understand the heroes and the villains as individuals and as a unit. Additionally, most of the focus episodes give each member of the team a chance to take initiative in an important way, and several of them stand as season highlights, and other times that same focus just humanizes them in a unique way, and that's fine too. The point being that everyone develops, everyone grows, everyone has multiple moments where they get to shine, call their own shots, and at times make their own sacrifices. Even Trakina gets a chance to develop in a way that no villain before her ever has, both to prove something to herself and to carry on the legacy of her fallen father. In short, Lost Galaxy is a season carried by character arcs. In closing, Lost Galaxy is more than just a season of Power Rangers, it's truly a journey in every sense of the word. It's a tale that is more brutal and painful than any season before it, but at the heart of Lost Galaxy is an inherent understanding of heroism and choice. When your moment arrives, when you need to stand back up and keep moving forward, when people look to you for strength in the darkest days while hope slips through their fingers, what will you do? Who will you choose to be? Lost Galaxy strongly informs us, maybe more so than any season of Power Rangers, that not everyone is a hero, but anyone can be, even if you weren't supposed to be. Hopefully, that was a little more uplifting than my less than positive take on Samurai. Talking about this season and the Rangers thereof really matters to me on a deeper level than just analysis, so more than anything, I hope I effectively conveyed that through this video, because these are the people that come to mind when somebody asks me who my heroes are. And Carter, and Summer, and Casey, and TJ of course, and Tommy, and well, you get the idea. And next time we talk Rangers, we're going to be taking a closer look at revolutions per minute. It won't be the same kind of large-scale thematic review, not yet anyways, but it's something I also wanted to discuss for a long time. But until then, thanks for watching.